Hello there everyone, I'm Red Chair Gaming and welcome to today's video. Today I'm talking about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, as you could probably tell from the thumbnail and the title. But moving on from that, everyone and their mom has done a review of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, so I decided I'm going to make a video in defense of Cursed Child, although I am going to point out some things I had problems with because it's not flawless. So I have a handy dandy list of 22 different things that I want to bring up in this video, and I figure I should just get started. The number one plot point in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child that people come into contact with and obviously have a problem with is the introduction, or reintroduction as it should be said, of the Time Turner, and realistically there's not really a way that you can go ahead and say, oh well, it makes sense. Really, if you want to believe that J.K. Rowling just said they were all destroyed in the Ministry and that's final, then you're just going to have to accept that and you can just say that the book made absolutely no sense. However, as this is a story that calls for suspension of disbelief as you live in the magical world with witches and wizards and magical beasts, this story very obviously is going to call for you to believe what they're telling you. And frankly, it's not that unbelievable that dark wizards would be in possession of this. And they do address that Theodore Nott, who had the Time Turner, did not want to bring back Voldemort. That's why it makes sense that Voldemort didn't just get brought back. A lot of people also complain that Amos Diggory doesn't seem like the type of person to come back and complain to Harry all these years later that Cedric died. And I, for one, agree. However, I think that, as mentioned in the story, he could have just been confounded, and I'm fully willing to believe it. In the same scene with Amos Diggory, we get introduced to Delphi, and everyone's like, oh, she's such a weak plot point, and red flags were just popping up for everyone. I didn't see her as a red flag, and I don't think everyone saw her as a red flag. Next up, this point I completely agree with. Harry's a terrible dad. Honestly, there's no going around it. Harry is a terrible dad. He literally tells his son that sometimes he wished he didn't have him as a son. The story synopsis does say that Harry is an overworked Ministry employee, and I'd imagine it's not great going from being the glorious Harry Potter to being behind a desk. It's pretty reasonable that Harry's just a terrible person. A lot can happen in 19 years. The next complaint we come into contact with is the next major problem we come into contact with is the idea that they can change the past. Now, of course, this isn't what it looks like in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. However, we're not really given explicit rules, and we just kind of assume a lot of stuff. And there are different ways this can work out, but I am one to say that it made absolutely no sense. I read the book twice just so it would make a little bit more sense, and I have my Canadian copy of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban so that I can see if I missed anything in terms of time travel. After they get back from the past and everything's changed, Harry's like screaming at McGonagall, and that is the one part I will say is distinctly un-Harry. No matter how much Harry could have possibly changed in 22 years at this point, I think, he would not scream at the lady that he used the Cruciatus Curse to defend. So that's just one major thing that I really disliked, and I felt really overstayed its place in the story because Harry would never talk to McGonagall like that. The next thing we get mention of that everyone's been complaining about is Death Eater Cedric, and I will be one to say Cedric doesn't seem like the type of person to become a Death Eater. But there's so much that could have gone wrong with the timeline that I am willing to believe that this could have happened, because for all we know, Cedric could have been left in the graveyard with Harry and just kept quiet instead of shouting at Peter Pettigrew. Cedric could have just been left behind and Voldemort could have threatened him, forced him to become a Death Eater, and then he just continued to fight. So that's where I'm going in all of this, and I don't know, it doesn't seem that dishonorable because I'm pretending in my head that maybe he was doing it to defend his dad. A lot of people also complain that Ron's holding his wand backwards at one point in the play. And yeah, he's a nervous wreck who's been in hiding for 22 years. And everyone's like, oh, well, that's Ron, who was in Auror for a while. And yeah, Ron was in Auror for a while in an alternate timeline. And then he became a joke shop runner. Who the heck knows how that happened? I also found it really interesting that they threw in the whole Dementor scene, and Scorbus is just the entire thing that Scorpius is able to think of in order to keep depression at bay. The next topic I had an issue with that no one else has seemed to have an issue with is the Brachiobindo curse and how they're always just shouting emancipate, because it just really seems reminiscent of Ungelify in a Harry Potter sequel, and it was just too easy to get out of. There's also the big reveal of Delphi being Voldemort and Bellatrix's daughter. It's like the Time Turner thing. If you want the book, or the story, because it's not a book, to keep making sense, you just have to assume that it happened, have to accept that it happened, and it's a magical world. One issue I still have with the play is the Fidelius charm. However, a lot of people are saying that maybe it's because the Secret Keeper is already dead in the future, so whenever they come back, they see that the Fidelius charm isn't really there for them. But who knows? One issue I cannot get over is that Lily just took baby Harry out for a walk while Voldemort's looking for them. My next line of defense is going up against all of those people who were responding so negatively to that one particular line in which Malfoy says, Hermione Granger, I'm being bossed around by Hermione Granger. And then Hermione turns towards him, and I sort of envision that as sort of menacingly. And so he says, and I'm mildly enjoying it, like trying to play off, like he's not complaining, he's trying to be part of the team, you know, that sort of thing. And that's how I see it going. I don't see it as Malfoy being genuine. I see it as Draco trying to save himself. Next issue a lot of people had was, why was Transfiguration just not used for the entire rest of the series? And as we can see, a ton of wizards and witches working together weren't even able to keep a sort of disguise that held up for 5 minutes, let alone for the duration that most polished potions are able to last for. Albus is sent in to defend Harry, and for some reason, Albus has a wand, and I don't really get where they got this wand from, because as far as I remember, theirs got snapped by Delphi, or his got snapped along with Scorpius' wand. So I don't really know where they got that wand from, but I'd like to see maybe it's explained in the play, maybe someone gave up their wand. When Voldemort finally shows up in Godric's Hollow, we're forced to kind of see the death. I say see because those of us who are reading just have some vision in our heads. The death of James and Lily Potter. And Hagrid comes wandering in, and it's left everyone wondering, where in the world is Sirius? And I don't have an answer for that. So that's one of those valid arguments that I see and I'm also bothered by. Why the heck would they have Scorpius ask out Rose Granger Weasley? I do understand that they had planted that seed pretty early on, like literally the first 2 scenes, or 3 scenes, and Scorpius is already infatuated with her. But it just seems so forced. I don't think that his crush, or whatever it is, would have lasted for that long. And I can understand why a lot of the really hardcore Scorpius shippers are still upset about that. Because Scorpius and Albus did seem like a very obvious pairing. I'm one of those people that really wasn't upset by the ending to this book in which they brought Albus and Harry to Cedric's grave. I wasn't one for liking the whole I'm afraid of pigeons, but I'm more scared of being a dad to you. It just seemed a bit too forced. However, it is the sort of thing that would have happened, and it's just so corny that it would have happened in real life. And I guess that's why I didn't like it as much. The biggest problem people had with this story is they were revisiting the past, and I think what they were trying to do was Harry letting go. This wasn't meant to be us letting go, but this was Harry letting go. They were also trying to send that sort of message that that's it, as J.K. Rowling said, possibly for Harry's story. And they wanted to revisit the past so that he could get over it, we could get over it. And we know that the Second Wizarding War is officially over. It's done. The past is set. Whatever we saw in the past of the Harry Potter books is over, and we just have to accept it. And as heartbreaking as it seems, I think it's Jack Thorne, John Tiffany, and J.K. Rowling trying to send the message that Harry's over his past and it's okay when we are. But I've already reread that book once and I'm not stopping. So J.K. Rowling didn't work if that's what you were going for. So that's my response. I'm not trying to belittle anyone's arguments. I'm just trying to give some insight to people who may have had questions pertaining to these issues, as I certainly did. And I've been dwelling upon these issues since I read the book. That's why I reread the book. And so I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope you got some insight from it. I love you all. I'll see you in the next video. And I upload every Wednesday, so goodbye. I will always love Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling.